Welcome everybody. It's a great pleasure to be hosting and chairing today's webinar, which is all about you. So you may find yourself in a position where you're looking for a new role at the moment, out of choice, not out of choice, maybe wondering about whether your job is secure at this point in time. And today really is a very interactive session, as Ben has alluded to. So hopefully you'll not hear too much from me other than fielding lots of questions to our esteemed panel. So my name's Vanessa Harwood-Witcher. I'm the Director of Professional Services for IOSH, and that basically means that I look after our 48,000 members across the world. It is your session, so please do ask questions. As Ben said, pop them into the Q&A box that's at the bottom or top of your screen. I'll try and sift as many of those as I can do and group them into different themes, and we'll just try and get through as many questions as we can do today. So whilst I'm chatting and just giving a bit of an introduction to the webinar today, please do have a think about some of the questions that you'd like to ask the panel. I know some of you are not members that are on the call today, so I think it's probably just worth saying who IOSH is. First and foremost, we're a professional body, so we set the standards for occupational safety and health right across the world. And we do that under a royal charter, and that means that we basically exist for the public good. So we're a charitable organisation here to help you as OSH professionals. We do that by driving thought leadership. So we carry out a huge amount of research each year, and many of the webinars, if you've joined some of the other ones in our series, you'll have seen some of that research coming to the fore. As I've mentioned, we have 48,000 members in around about 130 countries across the world, and I'm great to see that a variety of countries are with us today. And we really want to help businesses as well. So whilst we support members as individuals, we also want to help the organisations that they work for, whether that's at government level or at organisational level. And typically we train people right across the world. So around about 180,000 people over 70 countries year on year. So I think it's probably worth just setting a little bit of context for today's panel discussion. So obviously we're working under very strange circumstances at the moment. The role of health and safety professionals is always important, but I guess never so much as now. So whilst I'm talking and whilst the panelists are answering, I think it's good to perhaps reflect on some of the skills that you are finding that are emerging out of this current crisis. You know, what pressures have you been under? What examples have you got that you could potentially use on your CV, in job interviews coming out, which have really brought those skills and talents to the fore? And of course, IOSH is here to help you during this difficult period. I'll share at the end of our session just some of the resources that are available, but you know, that's our role, is we're here to help you. I think it's also worth just trying to remind people about our competency framework. So this was developed in November last year, and really is about trying to help OSH professionals think about being rounded practitioners. So we want people to think about the technical skills that they have. Obviously, your organisations are relying on you to be technical experts to make sure that organisations operate within the bounds of your legal structures in the country where you operate. But actually what we're finding, and I'm sure our panel will hone on this a little bit as we go through the discussion, we really need OSH professionals to think about the business skills that they have and the behavioural skills they have. And the competency framework was developed in consultation with members and with employers and with recruiters. And it was really a very clear message that the technical skills are given when you're employing someone, but actually the things that really help people to stand out are the business skills and the communication skills. So there is more information again on our website about the competency framework, but please do ask around some of these skills, and you know, our panelists will be pleased to answer any questions. So, not too much from me, you'll be pleased to hear. It's my pleasure to welcome our panel today. So we have Gareth Mullen, who is Head of Safety and Health and Wellbeing from Thames Water, Yvette Moffatt, Health and Safety Manager from the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, Liam Tiddy, who's Head of Practice at Shirley Parsons, and Simon Bliss, who's Managing Director of Principal People and also the founder of the charity Safety for Good. So that will end my little screen share here, and hopefully you'll be able to see our panelists. Just to get things going and get our panelists warmed up a bit, it would be great just to hear a couple of opinions. So we've basically got two recruiters in Simon and Liam, and two employers in Yvette and Gareth. So starting, Gareth, perhaps with you, it'd be really interesting to know from your perspective at Thames Water how COVID-19 has impacted on your organisation and perhaps some of the IOSH roles that you're working with at this time.
Yes, certainly. So we're a water utility, clearly. We're seen by the government as quite important to keeping UK PLC running throughout this time. So a large amount of our staff are designated as key workers. So we are out there, out on the streets, repairing broken mains, repairing leaks, doing general maintenance. It's no difference really to our cars. If we don't maintain them, they will break down. So it's important during this period of time that we continue to do so. Other parts of our staff are clearly not necessarily so key to our operation, but ultimately as a business we've been able to not furlough any of our staff to keep everybody running, and yeah, it's kind of business as usual, if you like, for the vast majority of our people.
Thank you. If I could say perhaps the same question to Yvette, how have you found things over in Ireland, and conscious that things are different, and how perhaps in a smaller organisation, but I guess with a number of your people that you're supporting being key workers at this stage?
Thanks, Vanessa. Yes, our staff are split into 3 or 4 cohort groups. We have clinicians and researchers, we have academics, and then professional services staff. So the majority of our academics and professional services staff are working from home since March, but our clinicians and our researchers are still working, many on the front line, and then research in the background, still in our buildings. So for those staff members, we've been trying to support them as best we can, while maintaining social distancing, hygiene etiquette, etc. And then for our professional services staff, the remote working is the key concern for a lot at the moment.
Thanks, Yvette. And Simon and Liam, perhaps Simon, starting with yourself. Obviously, recruitment, it'd be really good to understand what the market's like at the moment and what impact COVID might have had on your ability to place people and what employers are asking of you at the moment.
Yes, good day everyone. I can tell you a little bit about what happened in Q1. The market was pretty buoyant, January, February and March, and then things happened, didn't they, to all of us. Rather sadly, we had 6 jobs, permanent roles, that were offered to candidates with start dates, and all of them got withdrawn after they'd given notice, which was tragic for the candidates. And so I'm sure Liam's got some examples as well. But then we had that really difficult time of negotiating with clients to see if they would do something, be more generous, but they were panicking. They were retracting those offers. And we had to do some negotiation for the candidates with their previous employers to see if they'll take them back and put them on furlough, which we were successful with 3. We then got slightly deferred start dates with a couple of the others, but a couple fell out completely, where sadly the relationships broke down with the client and the candidate. So I felt, we were really feeling for those candidates who were really excited about the new roles that they accepted, have been offered. There is a little bit of legal catchback from that, which we've advised them on, but it's not good. It's only It's only really whatever notice period they were offered. So that was a challenge. But the buoyancy of Q1 stopped. The phone stopped ringing. And clients were not recruiting. So we had the beginning of April it was a bit like 2008, which was before my time, but I heard those stories from the previous owner at Principal People, and nothing was happening. We eventually furloughed 27 of our team and kept 10 in the office, the senior commercial people. And actually during April, a few, maybe contract and interim roles, short-term projects, started to come alive, which was encouraging. And they've continued through May. Like I said, more contract and interim rather than permanent. And we are seeing a little bit more unlocking in certainly construction is positive, utilities, no surprise with Gareth. But some of the more, what I would call corporate sectors like no surprise, travel, leisure, hospitality, oil and gas have really sort of hit the floor. And no surprise, we've been inundated with some great candidates from those sectors looking to transfer and come out of those sectors altogether, because there's going to be significant, damage to them, certainly in 2020 and possibly well into 2021. But that's our story so far. We think Q2 is going to be tough. We think Q3 will be tough. I think actually the furlough scheme has been good, for us, and I think I was talking to an employment lawyer the other day, and he said that the furlough scheme has stopped us getting 8 million people redundant. He said with the furlough scheme, that's going to narrow that back to 2.5 to 3 million. So it's made a significant difference. But he said the danger and the balancing act is it sometimes delays return to work.
The inevitable,
So
yes, as well.
Recovery may be slowed down, and we're already seeing some nervousness and challenge, and we're all seeing it on the TV every day with the poor education sector, who we want to get back, but naturally people are nervous about going back to work in a potentially dangerous environment. So it's a challenge.
Thank you.
So that's me done, I think, for a little while.
Thank
Liam.
you, Simon. Liam, yes, over to you.
Good afternoon. Really echo Simon's points there. Initially, March, April time was fairly chaotic, was probably the best way of putting it. So a lot of companies weren't sure what to do. There were offers pending, there were potential start dates pending. And it was very key to work with both clients and candidates in a collaborative manner. There were a couple of examples of where offers were withdrawn. Fortunately, those people were able to go back to their current company, or, as Simon mentioned, were able to have a deferred start date. Frankly, there are less opportunities on the market, unfortunately, and that will continue, certainly for the rest of the year, because there is nervousness and uncertainty, and that brings certain challenges for pretty much every organisation. On the other hand, there is opportunities. We are working still closely with a lot of key sectors, so there has been a certain drip feed of opportunities come through over the past couple of months, particularly in manufacturing, construction, utilities, and similar environments. On the positive slant, a lot of the jobs in the background, which may not be live, are on pause rather than actually pulled. Now, obviously, that we don't know when they're going to press play again, and appreciate it's not just the UK. We've got a lot of guests from all over the globe here, and everyone has their own particular challenges, whether you're in the UK, US, Asia. Everyone's together in this, but there are certain issues which are a lot more local. And of course, there are sector differences, as Simon referred to. The service industry has been hugely hit by this. But fortunately, in health and safety, it is a transferable skill set. If you demonstrate the wider non-technical skills, as Vanessa was mentioning, there will be potential opportunities, but there are less out there than there were.
Thank you, Liam. Well, thanks everybody for the tons of questions that are coming in. I'm going to try and group some of them together. So if you don't hear your specific question mentioned, hopefully I will manage to scoop it up in one of the questions to the panelists. Yvette, I wonder if I could target the first one to you. As a health and safety professional, how easy is it to move from sector to sector? So we've heard Simon and Liam sort of saying that, you know, some sectors are in downturn, but actually there are opportunities in others. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
So the health and safety legislation is pretty much the same wherever you work. You just have to adapt it to suit the environment in which you're working in. As long as you get the support you need from your employer on what the organisation is all about, you'll be able to adapt the legislation to that environment. And I think that's why our skills are so transferable, because you're kind of leading with similar information, just bringing it to different environments.
Thank you. Gareth, what's your thoughts on this? And maybe could you give us a little bit of hint about what some of those transferable skills might be?
Yeah, I know. I totally agree with Yvette there. Our skills are basic. 5 steps to risk assessment is no different whether you're in construction or whether you're sat in an office. The same principles apply, so you work through those same principles. For me, as you said earlier, when I'm interviewing people, I've already sifted people. Their technical skills should already be there. It's around those other skills that are bring to us. How communicative are they? Can they get their point across in a clear manner to others when they communicate with people? How personable are they with the people on the ground? One day they could be speaking to your construction workers and calling each other mate and Bob and etc. Very next day they could be sat in front of their board directors and having to kind of communicate at that level. So for me, that's the key thing. It is those other skills, the business planning, the ability to communicate with others. And at this time, I guess it's reminding people that actually it's that opportunity to get out and see what other skills you can gain. If I look at Thames Water, we haven't stopped employing people. We are still employing people. And we've taken people on from other industries where they've perhaps been furloughed or laid off. Example, we need HGV drivers at the moment. So we've taken on a load of drivers that were previously driving around the Britain's Got Talent vehicles, etc. So there's lots of opportunities out there, and this is the ideal time now to kind of get out there and see what else you can learn, take on, that you can then perhaps bring back into the profession later.
So the key really is sort of flexibility. So understanding what those sort of core transferable skills are, making sure, I guess, that they're coming through on your CV loud and clear. But I guess the way that you communicate, the way that you understand how a business operates and engage with a business is utterly transferable. So yeah, I think sort of allied to that, perhaps a question to Liam, if I may. A few of the questions that are coming from the audience are really about how recruiters judge those skills. So is it qualifications, is it experience? You know, when you're sifting through the bucketfuls of CVs that arrive on your desk, what are you looking for?
Okay, well, that's quite a big question, and I'll try and surmise it. So first and foremost, on the CV itself, it has to be clear where your skill set lies. So you can't put every experience in there. It's just too much. So get the key points to the front in terms of your experience, your qualifications, etc., etc. As long as that kind of looks positive and clear, that's fine. There's no one way of doing the CV, but it has to be clear. Secondly, the skills, that you do need the technical abilities, and obviously that will depend on each job. But in general terms, it is a given. Obviously, there'll be, we'll check qualifications, references, etc., etc. But the big question we get from clients is what's the personality like? What's the non-technical skills like? And that's where it's much more subjective. Of course, now you can go on to various online tools and you can say you're this particular personality, but that might not fit with someone else. So we're very much looking to see how they engage, and that depends obviously, where you sit in an organisation. But generally speaking, in health and safety, you do have to engage at all levels. So as Gareth mentioned, you have to probably deal with board members through to shop floor workers and give them the time of day. So we're looking to really understand that non-technical side of, okay, how do you engage, how do you lead, how do you influence? And we have a number of questions around that, but we feel confident around those particular skill sets. We're going to want to work with those set of candidates.
Thank you, Liam. Simon, there's a couple of questions just about do recruiters really understand what they're asking for? Qualifications. Sometimes that might be a barrier when somebody's got experience but not the qualification. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, employers tend to have a job specification and sometimes a personal specification. We're seeing, and we encourage them to have a person spec as well as a job spec. What am I going to do when I'm in the role? What skills and experience do I need? What qualifications do I need? So we work with the client in the beginning to really understand all of those mix. What technical qualifications do they need? What experience do they need? And some may say, I need a IOSH diploma or equivalent, and I need 5 years experience in this type of environment. If we find a good candidate that we think is great, but has 3 years experience, we'll go back to the client and say, we found this amazing person, some of the qualities that Liam was referring to in terms of engagement and communication, and we'll go back to the client and see if we can flex that. So it starts with the client, definitely, because they understand the role. They also understand, hopefully, the person. So we try and get, and I would think we get a job spec in every job. We get a person spec in 50%, and we're encouraging the clients, hiring managers, and HR to think more about the person spec as well, because I think we were discussing yesterday. People get hired on skills and experience; they get fired on behaviour. So you need to know what the person's like, as Liam clearly said. There are a couple of things I'd add on the CV, as and given that and our stats are probably the same as Liam's. We've been getting about 100 applications for every job we get, and we've got to then narrow that funnel down to probably 20, long list of 20, where the broad spec of the job and the individuals, there's a match. Then we start to really have qualification calls with those individuals for 45 minutes to an hour to drill down to that. So when you've got 100 CVs, you've got a lot of work. So we look at the profile at the beginning, or an overview of the person, and that can tell us a lot. And it's a bit like an executive summary for a board report that probably Gareth has to write every month. It's really try to get across who you are and what you're about. And underneath that, as well as listing the sort of job specs you've done in, whether it be Thames Water or then Southern Water or Balfour Beatty, we want to see some key achievements, because it's already well listing your job functions, but what did you achieve in those roles? And they ought to be tangible as well. And that tells a lot about, we have one client that says, if I haven't got any key achievements on a CV, I don't even want to see them. So because I can read what they did, I can read what their job functions were. So it is important to mix all of that together and present yourself as best you can be. And it is, sometimes people don't do CVs very much. I've been lucky, I've written one CV in 64 years. So, and some people have been in a role for many years and perhaps been promoted through one organisation. They haven't written a CV. So you've got to get yourself fit for the challenge of a new role and think about, your LinkedIn profile, maybe other social media profiles as well. Is it reflecting you? Because clients want to know about the person as well as the experience.
Thank you. I mean, I've sort of allied to that. Liam sort of touched on the fact that there's probably no one ideal layout for a CV, but Gareth, as an employer who again is probably sifting through copious numbers of CVs when you're hiring, what helps somebody get read in your eyes? So how do they get through that sort of barrier of not immediately going on the no pile because it's impossible to see in the CV, what the person's trying to tell you?
I'd agree with Simon there. It is what's achievements, what they actually done, and it's sometimes the wording. It's you'll get a lot that come through saying my team did, or I supported others doing, as opposed to I did. I managed to get this done. I managed to push this forwards, and those are the kind of things I'm looking for, I guess. And it's that transferability as well. So again, to give a mix, we have a large number of professionals in our team. And if all we ever did was hire water professionals, we wouldn't improve. So sometimes you need that mix of somebody from a different industry to kind of bring that, but why do you do it that way type approach. So again, we always look for those kind of candidates as well. It's we want a good mix of people who have a water background, but others as well can't bring that in. And for me, I'm looking for that kind of person that I can have a chat with within 10 minutes of the interview, not just be sat there asking a load of questions and getting a stock answer back.
Thank you. Yvette, there's a few questions around health and safety, and whether you're seeing a sort of shift in professionals' role from safety to health, particularly sort of exacerbated by the pandemic. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. The health and safety has definitely come to the fore in the last couple of years, and with the explosion of health and wellbeing courses has exacerbated that, which is a good thing. With the current situation that we're in, it's really coming to a head now, because we have a lot of people who are working in different environments now, either working from home or need to work in their workplace, albeit a social distance, and there's nobody around them, they're on their own, lone working, etc. And that brings up a lot of emotional issues. So what we've been doing is providing different wellbeing supports throughout this period of time, and on whether it's physical activity when you're remote working, don't forget that, whether it's nutritional support, we could all be beside the fridge a little bit more often when we're working from home, or whether what supports are there for lone workers. How can they keep in touch with their managers and their supervisors, and especially their colleagues?
So I guess that there may be a sort of requirement from employers with a lot of industries having to work more remotely, maybe not all coming back when it is safe to do, and perhaps changing their business models, that we could see a shift. Gareth, do you think, what's the case for Thames Water? Do you think everybody will continue to work at home who possibly can, and therefore your team will have to adapt to that, or what do you think on that?
Yeah, I think this is a blessing in some ways. The things that we as a business have managed to get done in a number of weeks. If I think about our call centre staff, we have over 450 call centre staff doing various activities. And for the last 8 years or so, we've been looking at kind of how can we make that more family friendly, get the mothers kind of be able to work the evenings and therefore be able to work from home. And yet in just a few weeks, we managed to get over 300 people taking calls from home. I can't see us going fully back to the office. And there will certainly be, going forwards, I think it would be a blend of working from home and a blend of being back in the office. So after all, we're all social creatures, and I think even after 8 weeks, I think many of us, even if we've got family around us, are starting to climb the walls a little bit. So I think it will be a blend going forwards.
Yeah, so there'll be a true mix, I guess, of demand on skills from IOSH professionals. So we've got a few questions from people at the very beginnings of their career, and sort of looking for advice really on a couple of fronts. So how to present themselves best when obviously they're in that sort of catch-all of don't have the experience, therefore can't get through the door, or perhaps looking at whether they should undertake some alternative training other than the qualification they're doing, just to sort of show willing. Liam, may I sort of ask you first of all for a thought on, you know, how do you get your toe in the door if it's your first role and you really want to come into IOSH as a profession?
Yeah, the question I believe actually is personal in this market, but also a buoyant market. You know, getting your first job in health and safety, or any career for that matter, is difficult because you haven't got any proof of delivery. But fortunately, companies do need new blood. They do want to help people develop their careers. Aside from obviously presenting your CV, social media platform in the right way, other avenues I suggest obviously is working with the right type of recruiters, people who know what they're talking about, are experts in the market. So, you know, obviously Simon and I work solely in the HSEQ market. We like to think we know what we're talking about. But if someone was looking for a job in advertising, I'm not your person. So it's really trying to work with people who understand what you're trying to achieve. And then it's networking. There are plenty of people out there who will be willing to help. So it's asking advice, being on forums like this. IOSH, you know, branch meetings, they've probably gone virtual now, I'm sure, but, you know, I've always advised people to get, you know, when they can, to get along to those as a guest, to get a real understanding of what goes on in the job, because actually it might not be the right job for you. So you need to kind of test it out. And lastly, in the current market, if you need a job, you know, you're going to have to take whatever, you know, to a degree comes your way, but there could be opportunities in that. So that, you know, plenty of people are going into health and safety through being a rep, or just putting a hand up and say, I'll do a IOSH managing safety course, or whatever it may be, and getting the boat from there. So there's always opportunities. This might not be obvious, but yeah, speak to people, work collaboratively. That'd be my main advice.
Thank you. Simon, is there anything to add from your perspective as a recruiter? Because I know this is such a common one, and I can see lots of sort of very similar questions of, you know, how do I get my toe in the door? Is it experience? Is it the qualification?
Well, I think Liam's answered that pretty well, actually. It's helpful if you know what you want at the beginning, or the type of role that you want. And if you're new to the industry, or you want to join the industry, then it is best to have a chat with specialist recruiter. And you know, Liam and I would welcome discussions with those people. And because we both work with you know, we supply people from accountants to zoos and everything in between. So we both have certain clients who actually welcome really positive, energetic and passionate people who want to get into the industry. Sometimes more so than maybe a hackneyed individual who had been in this industry for 20 years and hadn't developed their CPD and hadn't been really aggressive or ambitious with their journey in safety. So I've got some clients that say, if you find a passionate individual who's at the very beginning of their IOSH career, send them my way. And I guess Liam will have some of those as well. And a bit like the transferable skills we were talking about earlier, they will have something to bring to the company from their previous experiences. And if they've got interpersonal skills and they've got that passion, there is a hunger for that, with certainly a section of the client base and bigger organisations who have got an infrastructure to nurture and develop, have internal training programs as well. So that there's a good cross section of companies out there that welcome new blood.
Simon, I think if I could stay with you, obviously you took on principal people and are running your own business, and there's a few questions from the attendees, just wanting to know really about, you know, is going into consultancy or self-employment a sort of sensible option at the moment?
I think it's a tough time to do that. I know of, you know, with our network of candidates, and I won't call them candidates, they're health and safety professionals. Sometimes they're candidates, sometimes they're clients. This is a really tough time to go into consultancy, and because you have to, and Yvette actually might help here, because Yvette, you've been a consultant, I believe, as well in the past. You've got to learn a lot of breadth of skills, as well as your technical skills and your engagement. You've got to develop your own business, your marketing plan, your communication engagement. And, you know, as Liam and I have said earlier, there is less work on the ground at the moment. This is a tough time. I think there will be opportunities. It depends. I think, as you said at the beginning, Vanessa, people who may be looking for a new job now, maybe in 3 different areas, they've been made redundant and therefore they've got to get a job. They might be on furlough, so they're nervous about their security and how their organisation is going to either make some redundancies, keep some people, etc., etc. And there may be some people that have been working from home or are on furlough and have started to have a look at themselves and think, perhaps this is time for a change. So I think there's less jobs around. So for the moment, I would say starting an independent consultancy, unless you have a really good network of people that would be interested and can support you, then I'd say it's a tough time. And I might throw it over to Yvette, but because you might have some experience in this, because you have to spin many plates as a consultant. Right?
Well, yes, I went into a consultancy role myself during the last recession. So yeah, what I did back in those days really was work with other consultancy companies that were well established, and I became a contractor in a lot of cases, and I did work for those consultancies. So that's where I got my work back in those days. But you have to be a salesperson. You have to sell yourself. Then there's all the budgeting concerns that you discussed, Simon. It's a whole different ball game. Having a salary at the end of the month is so much easier, so much easier. And especially during this particular time when we're in this unprecedented situation, it might not be the best road to go right now. But
yeah,
yes, of course, Simon.
Liam and I will have contract and interim roles for those people who are out of work, and that I would advise before they jump in again, because the permanent roles are either on hold, which is great, and we're waiting for people to press the play button, as Liam said, but there are contract and interim roles about, and we're already seeing our profile in the past was 30% contract and interim, 70% perm. I think that's flexing now. And I think I mentioned to a couple of you, you know, we've already seen the NHS start to employ. I think there will be a real commitment for, unlike 2008, for investment in the public sector as well. I think there's some great roles, interim roles and contract and training roles going to be available, getting manufacturing businesses back to work with completely different working processes to protect their workers in the factories, because they're going to have to manage the social distancing. We're already seeing some of the challenges that the teachers are rightfully demanding for working at schools. So I think education is an opportunity. I think that'll come perhaps more so in September, because it looks like the secondary schools are going to hold off till then. But through the summer, there'll be some opportunities in education, working with schools and colleges and unis, to make sure that they get their processes in place with additional safety resource. We desperately need to get the the country back working. And I think actually this is a great opportunity for health and safety people to really contribute to that productivity safely and raise their profile within the management teams for how much they can contribute. So in all of this pain and suffering, there is some opportunity there.
And it's interesting what you say about consider interim or contracting roles as opposed to sort of pure self-employment. One of the questions on the question list is, you know, as an employer, would you look badly at somebody who'd got a series of sort of short-term assignments as opposed to, you know, good solid lengths of time with an employer? Gareth, I'm wondering, as somebody again who looks at CVs, would that put you off?
You've got to take it into context. You're looking against somebody that has perhaps got a series of short interval roles with numerous different employers versus someone that's clearly been contracting and doing that kind of interim type work under an agency or something else. And there's a big difference between somebody who's perhaps not suited to a role, jumps ship very quickly, against somebody who's actively going out there to seek those new experiences, is going out there knowing that they're only going to be with a company for 3 months, 6 months, and then may have a short break before they go into another company. So as an employer, you have to take that in mind when you're looking for your CVs, definitely.
Thank you. Liam, sort of again allied to that, there's quite a few questions about the ideal length of a CV, and I guess if you've done a lot of short-term roles, how do you get all that onto 2 pages of a CV?
Yeah, it's again, there's no set rule, but obviously you don't want to make it too long. It's making it relevant. So if you believe that you're right, of interest to the hiring manager or director, keep it in there, but keep it succinct, keep it clear. I've seen some great CVs which are 1 page. I've seen some great CVs with 6 pages. It doesn't really matter, but make it relevant. And as you know, we don't, you know, the older you get, the less relevant your GCSE or O levels are, in all honesty. We're not, you know, most people aren't interested in that. And frankly, to a certain point, your degree doesn't mean that much. It's more about, you know, where you are in your career and what you've delivered. And as Gareth mentioned, it's about what you've delivered and then your achievements. So just make it relevant. But as I say, work with people. You know, be it a recruiter or a family member. You know, very few people are alone. There's always someone that'll be willing to help and sense check.
Thank you. Yvette, just sort of changing the subject a little bit, obviously as a person trying to find a new job, how do you suss out the culture of the organisation that potentially you're applying to? So we've talked about fit and showing how you might do, but how do you just find out information about the company that you might be interested in?
Yeah, sometimes that can be difficult, but the first port of call is their website. Try and get a sense of the culture through their website. If you can find anybody who works in that organisation and you're able to approach them in any way, it's worth talking to them to see if the company is what you were looking for. But I even know from our own point of view, a lot of our students would even look at the websites for different colleges, etc. before they go. It's the same situation. You try and find out as much as possible about that employer if you possibly can before, and if there is anybody who works for them on a contractor basis or even provides delivery services to them, you still might be able to get some information about that organisation.
Thank you.
But it is hard.
There's a couple of questions around folks that are trying to find new positions in the more mature part of their career. So one question around sort of ageism, and is that something that the panel see, that employers are favouring younger candidates as opposed to ones in the twilight of their careers? And I guess sort of allied to that also, if you are approaching retirement age but you still want to work, obviously you've got a finite amount of time potentially to offer an employer, and what you should do about that. Liam, maybe if I can ask you just to sort of talk about the ageism bit.
Okay.
First of all.
Always a tricky subject, but that's
Yes.
not a problem. So, fortunately, in health and safety, ageism, I don't believe is a major issue. I'm sure there are examples where it happens, but I'd say that's more individual hiring directors or managers rather than companies or the sector itself. There will be occasions where the company will want someone they want to develop. Now, it's whether that's ageism or not is a very fine line to tread. But if you're towards the twilight of your career, and I would suggest being honest is the best way forward. If clients, as Gareth has mentioned, they want return on investment. If you're only planning to work for a year, that's not really good for a hiring person to come in for a permanent job. I do appreciate people do need work, so it's a really tricky subject. But I think honesty tends to work out. But also, if you're a lot of people with a younger demographic, 2 to 4 years in one job is a pretty long time in this day and age. So someone might be 60, 61, you might get 5-6 years out of them potentially. That's really good return on investment. So again, I'm going to kind of not give a direct answer. It's a case-by-case basis. But again, work with people. Don't pull the wool over people's eyes. You'll soon get found out. But I don't think ageism is a major issue in the industry. But I'm sure Simon might have an answer to that as well. Yeah.
I apologise for the horrible question, panel. So, Simon, anything to add to that?
One of the best contractors we ever had, which we had on interim and contract for probably 6 years, when he passed away last year. It was really tragic. He passed away as we were about to put him into his 7th role with us, and he was 71. And he worked in social housing, council, construction, and also an education authority in London. Clients loved him. He was he was ex-forces, as lots of great safety people are, men and women. And we could always find him a job because we get a little bit of, when people start to look at the CV and can see or guess the individual is old, it was, we'd sometimes get some barriers with potential new clients or clients, but we'd say, see this guy for interview. And then you reject him then, or tell me off if you don't like him. And he won the people. I think he only got rejected from one interview of the people we put him through. He was fantastic. And we do have some wonderful, more senior people at my age. I'll be 64 next month, who are brilliant for 2-3 day short-term projects. Peter, we have one guy who's doing a 2-day project with a vineyard and 3-day project somewhere else now. So they're fantastic, and they bring such a lot of experience to those short-term projects because a lot of it, they've seen it all before, so they can hit the ground running.
Yeah, so that's probably the sell, isn't it? That you have seen it all before and you can be quick to deal with things.
That is more difficult with permanent,
yes.
when we're not in COVID, of course.
Yes. I'm conscious we're coming very close to the end of our time, panelists. I can't believe it's gone so quickly. There's a question from one of the viewers just asking about disability as well, and again sort of being able to get through the threshold to be considered in the shortlisting process. Gareth, I'm sorry to put you on the spot a bit, but what does Thames Water do to try and make sure that obviously it's approaching things from a equality, diversity and inclusiveness position when it's recruiting? I'm guessing you have policies in place to ensure that that's a fair process.
Absolutely, and I think times have changed, certainly over the last 5 years or so. If I think back on diversity, we've changed dramatically in that time, and we're now a very diverse employer. If you have a look at our executive board now, it's almost 50-50 in terms of the membership of that executive board. Our chairman is registered disabled, and that has clearly has a clear influence on how we approach things as well. But everybody has their skills, and we can see that kind of some of the most skilled sportsmen in the world, sports people in the world are disabled. I'm looking at celebrity SAS at the moment, you see on the telly, and you see the candidates there without an arm, can't get through some of the courses that some of the guys there are struggling to do. Amazing. And there's no reason why that shouldn't be any different to a role that people undertake.
Well, I guess it probably depends very much on the employer and how sophisticated they are in their people policies, but obviously there are laws protecting people within the UK, and I guess similarly in other territories. One final question, if I may, then to the panel. It's just thinking about the situation outside the UK. Liam, obviously we've talked a lot about the sort of recruitment market and its buoyancy in the UK, but any tips for those that are outside the UK?
Yeah, some minor ones, because obviously we can't cover every country, but I know we've got offices in the US which are still open and still busy. Obviously a slightly different political situation out there, and I won't mention that any further. But obviously, wherever you are, you still got to build those relationships. It will be very difficult to move from country to country for the foreseeable future. I can't see how that's going to change. And even when obviously the airlines open up again, there will be nervousness from hiring companies, managers. So I would suggest just apply for appropriate jobs, really the main thing. So look at what you're applying for. Again, try and take on board all the other advice that's given today. But feel free, if anyone's on the conference today, drop me a line via LinkedIn. I will try and answer some questions. I may not have the answers, but I can give my opinion.
And Simon, probably the same question to you. How does it feel outside the UK recruitment-wise?
I think it's an East-West question at the moment. I've seen the opportunities are opening up in China already, South Korea. We've got and Southeast Asia. We have a small office with our group in Singapore, and that's opening up now. We've got Austria is almost open now and has been since the middle of April, and so you're seeing the opening up east to west. I think sadly, our tracking and our testing is holding us back a little bit, so it will affect the UK. But a bit like I think the challenge, and we can't cover everything today, but I'd just like a plug before we go, because we won't cover all the questions. There's 111 questions on the list I see already, and we won't be able to cover them all.
Tried my best.
I know, you've done very well. But we're running some training webinars over the next 6 weeks during COVID to help candidates. And the first one next week is building your toolkit for developing your personal brand, CV, your LinkedIn profile and social media. And then that's followed by preparing for virtual interview. And there's lots of those around at the moment. That's very different to a face-to-face. And then preparing for competency-based interviews, which HR have quite rightfully started to bring in reasonably, and then developing your personal and getting your personal development plan ready post COVID-19. A lot of people are quite reactive about how they're thinking about their next job, not their career. And we try and get people to look a little bit further. And lastly, which I know Yvette's done some work with, is trying to identify the right mentor for you. And at Safety for Good, we've been doing some matching with senior leaders or more experienced managers with new or younger people who are mentees looking, they're either new to the industry and want to develop, or they might be in their new role, a new position as a first hiring manager role. And so it's good to partner them with someone who's done that. But I think a mentor is really good. If they're outside of the organisation, they can be objective in what they do.
Yes, I'm surprised that hasn't come up in the questions, although it could have done in the 111. We're running out of time now, so I'm afraid I can't take any more questions. But I think just in summary, there are opportunities out there. It seems to me that candidates have got to look very closely at what sectors are hiring at the moment, and that's probably mimicking very strongly how people have been affected in their organisations financially and their ability to trade at the moment. It's good to know that recruitment is open and that there are opportunities no matter what stage of your career you are at. And I think the other takeaways for me really are about really selling yourself on those transferable skills, the technical ones as well as the communication and the business skills, and making sure that those and your achievements come to the fore on the CV, that it doesn't matter how long the CV is, or if you've been in short contracts or longer term roles. The key is showing the employer exactly what you can bring to benefit that new employer. So I think, panel, thank you so much. There are a whole load of resources, and Simon's done a plug for some the principal people have. I'm sure Shirley, Parsons have equal ones, and of course IOSH do too. So we have the newly launched Career Hub for members, which is free of charge to use, and you can do practice job questions, CV simulations, all sorts of different things, and some research into some of the sectors and companies that might be hiring at the moment. And of course we have our new mentoring platform. So we didn't get a chance to explore mentoring too much, but it's definitely a way to help network and to hone your skills. We've got lots of resources on COVID. There were a whole stream of questions in the question bank around our position on COVID, and I haven't taken those today just deliberately because I wanted to focus on the recruitment side of things, but you can go to the IOSH website and find out a lot more about those. And I would just really like to extend my thanks to our panelists today, and I'm sure everybody on the call today is very grateful for your sharing of knowledge, and it's been a pleasure to throw some pretty awkward questions to you at times. So please do fill in the feedback poll online, and we really appreciate your feedback. But that formally ends today.